intermarry and have children to ensure the purity of noble blood. This tradition is mirrored in Egypt, where incestuous activities were practiced regularly among the royalty for the same reasons. The first pharaoh, named Osiris, and his wife Isis were in fact twin brother and sister, and said to be born the son of Geb and Nut, or the Egyptian gods of earth and sky, symbolically meaning a mix of an earthly race and sky god DNA. What is more, a quick examination of the mummified remains of Egyptian royalty and noble-class families reveals a startling number of Nordic Aryan features, including hair color and facial structure. This, however, is not the most startling discovery found in an ancient Egyptian or Incan tomb. Get this, they have found the carefully mummified remains of what clearly appear to be alien graves. In a special room in the back of a private museum in Arequipa, Peru, is a strange mummy. Museum records indicate that the mummy came from a group of locals who made excavations at the location of a grave in an almost inaccessibly high cave in the mountains near Tres Cruces that they believe the Incas had hidden, and which was decorated with strange snake symbols. In Egypt, archaeologist and retired professor Dr. Victor Lubeck found the body of a perfectly preserved, carefully mummified alien buried in a hidden compartment of a small ancient monument dating back more than 2,000 years from the dynasty of Sesostris II. The details and photographs of the find were provided by an insider source from the Egyptian Antiquities Department under the condition of anonymity. This anonymous messenger reports that the discovery has caused great consternation among Egyptian officials who want to keep it hidden until they come up with a plausible explanation for the strange mummy. He says the government has consulted a number of respected archaeologists, but to date none can explain the finding, and that every expert who has seen the mummy has concluded that it is not of earthly origin, and that there is a sense that this is an alien who somehow ended up advising an Egyptian king. This is probably because inscriptions on the tomb of the mummy showed that he was a counselor named Osirinet, meaning star or sent from heaven. This is very interesting because Sesostris II, as a Nordic Aryan, had great contempt, like his father, for the Nubians of South Africa and viewed them as vile. And during his reign he officially forbade Negroes from entering Egypt. And then his son, Sesostris III, conducted 4 campaigns against the blacks, with the final conquest of Nubia in 1840 BC. He constructed several forts at strategic points on either side of the Nile, making Nubia a permanent colony of Egypt, and erected the world's first whites-only sign with the first Semna Stela inscription recounting the subjugation of Nubia. Under dragon bloodline direction and rule, each culture proceeded to make huge advancements in all areas of society in a very short amount of time, and gave all of the credit for their amazing accomplishments to the ancient sky gods who gave them the gifts of civilization. They quickly developed the various arts and sciences, and repeatedly demonstrated that they understood and possessed various types of advanced knowledge that they should not have had or known. The ancients worldwide used advanced engineering techniques to build megalithic monuments, including numerous dolmens, menhirs, pyramidal structures, and sacred temples all across the globe, many of which shared the important symbolic feature of triptych architecture. This ancient worldwide triptych tradition has endured through the ages and continues to be widely utilized today in many modern sacred structures, including those of various Western esoteric secret orders like the Freemasons, Skull and Bones, and the Shriners. This feature is also shared by many important religious structures as well, including several of both Catholic cathedrals and Islamic mosques. The most important sacred structures were placed on specific locations along Earth's natural energy lines, and especially where they meet an energy is strongest, called vortices. Not only did the ancient people use this advanced knowledge to build unbelievable structures, but they also built tens of thousands of miles of amazing aqueducts, canals, bridges, and roads all over the ancient world. Some, like the pre-Inca highway system, went in a direct line through impossible barriers, crossing canyons and swamps and piercing mountains with tunnels that are still in use today. The ancients utilized many advanced construction techniques. Among these are the widespread use of a superior form of cement, to the use of enormous copper clamps, gold nails, and silver bolts weighing tons, and even a softening procedure for hard rock, enabling it to receive hand or foot imprints by pressure only. Ancient texts in Tibet record that in very ancient times, during a golden age, the people were wise and skillful and built great houses of crystal. These ancient people not only built amazing structures, many several stories tall, but they also decorated them elaborately too, outside and in. These buildings not only looked good, they had many of what we consider today to be modern conveniences like heat and air conditioning, and hot and cold running water, and indoor plumbing, and sewage removal systems. Ancient civilizations were able to achieve a lot of their amazing feats because they possessed a high degree of understandings of complex mathematical knowledge. The accuracy of the ancients to the point of infinitesimal fractions is enough to make even the most die-hard skeptic stop and think. It allowed the ancients to do unbelievable things like construct the Great Pyramid perfectly square to within 3/10,000%, while fitting enormous blocks together with the accuracy of 1/100th of an inch, or pinpoint the solar year in Mexico to within an accuracy of 1/20,000th of a day. Ancient astronomers even used algebra to work out the position of celestial bodies at any given time. In fact, all the available evidence suggests that they had an intimate understanding of the universe and possessed advanced astronomical knowledge. This is demonstrated by the fact that earlier civilizations knew things about the universe that there is no possible way that they could have known without some external help. They not only knew that the planets in our solar system float in space and revolve around the sun, they also knew the distance to and the size of each planet, as well as various aspects about them that we could not find out without modern technology, like the existence of the bands of Jupiter, or the fact Uranus is the only planet that presents both poles to the sun. In fact, some like the Sumerians even say there is another planet beyond Pluto in an elongated elliptical orbit that only reaches the inner solar system roughly every 3,600 years, from which their ancestors came. An old Sumerian map confirms this and shows the sun and 11 planets counting the moon all by size. The story of just such a planet is corroborated by a 3,600-year-old text recorded by Egyptian and Celtic authors called the Colburn Bible. It was known to the Egyptians and Hebrews as the Destroyer. The Celts called it the Frightener. It is also known today as Wormwood, Nibiru, Planet X, and Nemesis. The winged disc symbol was used by the Sumerians and many others like the Egyptians, Persians, and Assyrians, and was originally a representation of this planet. There is now good reason to believe that this secret planet, Planet X, does exist. On December 31st, 1983, scientists announced that they have located a body in orbit beyond Pluto, and on March 27, 2009, it was captured on SOHO. It appeared briefly as the winged globe of legend. Today, like many other sacred symbols, the winged disc has lost its original esoteric meaning and is highly commercialized instead, essentially hiding in plain sight. The Sumerians' belief that their ancestors came from and inhabit other planets is not an isolated historical occurrence. Actually, according to several ancient cultures, like those of ancient India and Greece, there exist many other Earths with inhabitants. In fact, most civilizations claimed our ancient ancestors came from various other star systems, including Orion and Sirius, or like the Mayan people who lived in Tikal, and many others, the Pleiades. Their 7 main temples, or pyramids, are perfectly aligned with and mimic the star map of the Pleiades. The significance of the star system is illustrated at various locations on this planet, and this is not just a coincidence. Most every civilization has a myth concerning the Pleiades, or the 7 sisters, and like in Tikal, you can find the Pleiades identically displayed by structures in Egypt, Rome, Ethiopia, and Iran. It can even be found at Stonehenge and on the Freemasons' first-degree tracing board, but the most peculiar place it has been found is in the Cydonia region of Mars. The ancients not only knew amazing things about the expansive outer universe and space, but they were also very intimately knowledgeable about the inner universe and the space inside the human body and how it works. Ancient medical practice, it appears, was more than folk herbs. Rather, medicine and surgery were fantastically advanced millennia ago, as evidenced by surviving ancient medical and surgical textbooks, diagnostic manuals, and pharmaceutical encyclopedias. Surviving evidence shows that they understood about things like the nervous system and metabolism, and that they successfully performed various complex surgeries, including heart and brain, while using instruments as good as, if not superior to, what is used today. Written records indicate the ancients used some modern techniques, including immunizations, radiation therapy, blood transfusions, x-rays, and according to Egyptian and Indian texts, they had wonder drugs for incurable diseases. In Colombia, they found a large amount of strange artifacts, including what appear to be tools and medical instruments, but they do not fit in any existing pre-Columbian culture. Being composed of ludite, an exceptionally hard stone with a flaky and delicate structure, they are impossible to replicate today, yet they are at least over 6,000 years old. The most important piece found here is called the genetic disc. Clearly depicted on it are a number of incredible images showing genetic or biological information, including illustrations of microscopic human biology, as well as the stages of fetal development and sexual reproduction. On one side shows the microscopic biology of human eggs, one with and another without spermia. On the other side are presentations of a fetus at different sizes and stages, eventually ending up with what looks like a child, as well as other humanoid figures. There is enough evidence, like the unmistakable Egyptian hieroglyphic depictions of light bulbs and the numerous ancient batteries found in Baghdad, that we must now regard the past use of lighting and electricity as a historical certainty. There is also a document from India that contains a detailed description, not only of how to construct an electric battery, but also how to utilize this battery to split water into two gases, the electrolysis of water into hydrogen and oxygen. The existence of electric and lighting devices in ancient times cannot be questioned, and yet, until 1890, we supposedly possessed only candles, torches, and oil lamps. It is easy to think that this was always the case, because the Greeks and Romans used torches and oil lamps for illumination. And wherever passageways are still standing between ancient buildings, traces of smoke can be found on the ceilings. How then do we explain the fact that no trace of smoke is found in any Egyptian pyramid or in the subterranean tombs of the pharaohs, which are beautifully carved and painted with the precision and delicacy requiring the equivalent of daylight? Perpetual lamps that functioned indefinitely without oil or any product that was burned or consumed were apparently pretty universal in the ancient world. They have actually been found in underground tombs, vaults, and dwellings around the globe. Touching them was prohibited under pain of provoking an explosion capable of destroying an entire town. Judging from all the available evidence, it would also seem that the ancients were also intimately familiar with the concept of flying, and that the topic of ancient flight is actually way more complicated than just similar stories of sky gods descending to earth and establishing various cultures. People all over the world also seem to have retained separate memories of a period when aviation was a well-known concept and flight was a frequent occurrence. There are numerous tales of ancient kings using airships to get around. What is more, their writings demonstrate knowledge of aerodynamics and an awareness of the factors of takeoff propulsion, braking, and landing. These ancient books give instructions in great detail, including pictographic texts of how to build and fly various kinds of aircrafts, as well as covering their multitude of uses, including fighting wars and even space travel. Many aerodynamic artifacts that look like miniature planes have been found in various tombs in South America. In addition, there are giant petroglyph drawings like the Nazca lines found in various places on the globe that are situated skyward and can only be seen and appreciated from the air. Culture with the most evidence concerning ancient flying machines, though, has to be India. Many ancient Vedic writings are concerned with stories of various aspects of aircrafts, including construction and usage. In fact, the Sanskrit term Vimana Vidya means the science of building and piloting airships. A 3,000-year-old Indian text entitled Vaimanika Shastra, meaning the science of aeronautics, has 8 chapters with diagrams on the construction of 3 different types of aircraft. It included the design for a helicopter-type cargo plane and drawings for double and triple decker passenger planes for as many as 500 people. It included plans for an aircraft that flew in the air, traveled underwater, or floated pontoon-like on the water. Information covers everything from the qualifications and training of pilots to instructions on how to make the aircraft invisible to enemies, zigzag in the sky like a serpent, paralyze other aircraft, create the illusion of a star-spangled sky, and even list proportions of certain chemicals which will envelop the aircraft and give it the appearance of a cloud. This is but a small sample of the wealth of available evidence, yet it is already perfectly obvious that the ancients were undoubtedly familiar with flight. However, according to an ancient document from Tibet, we aren't supposed to know this because the knowledge of the flying machines is secret and not for the masses. There is a wealth of evidence that supports the idea that the ancients had access to and used many forms of advanced weaponry, including ancient bullet holes in the skulls of not only a 38,000-year-old Neanderthal, but also an auric bison which went extinct over 100,000 years ago. Both have perfectly round holes with no radial split lines around the hole or other marks that should have been left by a cold weapon such as an arrow or a spear. The difference is that the Neanderthal skull, on the side opposite the hole, the cranium is shattered, and reconstruction of the fragments show the skull was blown from the inside out. But the oryx wound had partially calcified over and healed the edges of the wound, indicating it survived the shot. Besides these skulls, there is a lot of evidence that the ancients possessed not just guns, but a multitude of other kinds of deadly weapons, including chemical and biological warfare, laser weapons, napalm-like and H-bombs, and what they called flying spears that could ruin whole cities. Are these missiles with nuclear warheads? Could this really be possible? Well, evidence proves that the ancients somehow knew about the infinitely small. In fact, the atomic theory was known in Egypt, and the pits used to preserved corpses contained highly radioactive substances. In the Indian Mahabharata, we find reference to the Kashta, equivalent to 3/100 millionths of a second, and at the other extreme the Kalpa, a period of 4.32 billion years. The only phenomena in nature that can be measured in billions of years or in millionths of a second are the disintegration rates of radioisotopes. But here's the really scary part. Researchers have recently rediscovered a number of documents translated last century, buried in incomprehensible terms until modern knowledge caught up with former knowledge and was able to recognize it. These very ancient documents contain what is now startling familiar language, and their contents are quite alarming. Here are eyewitness reports that raise the compelling question: did nuclear war wipe out large sections of the civilized world in the 3rd millennium BC? An Indian text recounts in detail how aircraft were used to launch a weapon that devastated 3 cities. The record is unnervingly similar to an eyewitness report of an atomic bomb explosion. It describes in detail the brightness of the blast, the column of rising smoke and fire, the fallout, the intense shock waves and heat waves. It also chronicled the appearance of the numerous victims and the effects of radiation poisoning on the surviving people, animals, and even the food supply. The war zone is in the upper regions of the Ganges, precisely in the region specified in the old records between the Ganges and the Rajamahal Mountains. There are numerous charred ruins. The indications are that these ruins were not burned by ordinary fire and appear as huge masses fused together with deeply pitted surfaces caused by fires which were hot enough to liquefy rock or metal. Further south are more such ruins. The walls have been glazed, corroded, and split by tremendous heat. In some buildings, even the surfaces of the stone furniture have been vitrified or melted, then crystallized. In the same region, a human skeleton was found with radioactivity 50 times above the normal level. The ruins of the ancient Indus Valley cities of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa are immense. They are thought to have contained well over 1 million people each, yet they had effective sewage removal systems and almost every house had a bathroom. Practically nothing is known of their histories except that both were destroyed suddenly. In Mohenjo-daro, in an epicenter 150 feet wide, everything was crystallized, fused, or melted. 180 feet from the center, the bricks are melted on one side, indicating a blast. Ancient Indian texts speak of a city's people being given 7 days to get out, a clear warning of total destruction. Excavations down to the street level revealed 44 scattered skeletons, as if doom had come so suddenly they could not get into their houses. All the skeletons were flattened to the ground. A father, mother, and child were found flattened in the street, face down and still holding hands. The skeletons, after thousands of years, are still among the most radioactive that have ever been found, on par with those of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And here's something else. Did you know that when the first atomic bomb exploded in New Mexico, the desert sand turned to fused green glass? Only a nuclear explosion could produce an entire layer, a whole stratum of fused green glass. Yet they can be found in multiple other places on Earth, like ancient Babylonia and some old and Middle Kingdom sites in Egypt as well. The Tibetan stanzas of Zayan regarding the area of Gobi, Mongolia, depict a holocaust engulfing 2 warring nations. The desert surface of the Gobi near Lobnor Lake is covered with vitreous sand from Red China's atomic tests, but the desert has certain areas of similar glassy sand which have been present for thousands of years. Here, too, there are ruins, almost formless, that bear the marks of blistering by enormous heat. Other similar ruins can be found in countries including Scotland, France, Iraq, and Brazil. Okay, up until this point you have learned some incredibly amazing yet deeply disturbing things. However, the most astonishing and suppressed archaeological secret of them all is the existence of ancient cities, temples, and inexplicable tunnel systems, part natural and part artificial, beneath the surface of the greater part of the earth, with many supposedly containing perpetual light sources. Probably the most well-known example of an underground dwelling comes from Turkey, where over 200 underground cities, at least 2 levels deep, have been discovered, with around 40 of those having at least 3 levels and some many more. The biggest, Derinkuyu, is a maze of connecting chambers that descended at least 18 stories and 280 feet beneath the surface, ample enough to hold 30,000 people, and much remains to be excavated. One tunnel, wide enough for 3 people walking abreast, connects to another underground town 6 miles away. Other passages suggest that at one time all of Cappadocia above and below the ground was linked by a hidden network. Available evidence suggests that this was not an isolated occurrence but rather a global trend. In fact, many vast tunnels have been explored and are proven to extend for thousands of miles. Stories of mysterious subway systems have persisted for thousands of years and exist in the legends, folklore, and myths of almost every country around the globe. There are descriptions by African travelers of vast tunnels all over the continent, like the huge tunnel, 30 miles of which has been explored, that runs under the sea between Morocco and Spain. Europe has a vast network of subterranean passages, including approximately 100 found to exist throughout the country of France alone. A Mongolian legend claims that there's a system of tunnels in Afghanistan that are lit up by a green luminescence and that link up with all other tunnels around the world. Tibetan lamas once showed the American traveler R.C. Anderson a very old map of underground passages connecting North and South America, Europe, and Africa. Artificial labyrinths are also known to stretch under vast areas of Central Asia and China. An immense temple lies underground in Hawaii, and tunnels are believed to link each of the islands. In North America, there too are many traditions and legends among Alaskan Eskimos and various Native American Indian cultures like the Apache, the Mandan, and Sioux that mention and describe vast underground tunnels, labyrinths, and cities, many believed to still be inhabited and lit by a perpetual light. Further south, a gigantic system of interlocking tunnels thousands of miles in length extends under Ecuador and Peru and connects Lima to Cuzco, then goes on to Bolivia or the sea. Indeed, thousands of miles of tunnels have been explored and measured. The weight of evidence suggests that whatever the reason, there were once whole cities linked by an elaborate complex of tunnels that were constructed in ways beyond our present capability. Is there any modern evidence that the dragon bloodlines that helped to advance these ancient cultures and gave them such amazingly rich histories are still around today? Well, the answer is a resounding yes, and it is right in front of you everywhere you look. But to see it, you must first know to be looking, and second, you must understand what it is you are looking at. One of the best sources concerning these ancient bloodlines is Prince Nicholas de Vere von Drakenberg. Because Nicholas's father and mother had contempt for human beings and human society as a whole, at the age of 7, Nicholas's family moved to the remote outskirts of the Kentish village of Kemsing, and then later to isolated rural settings in Devon and Sussex. As he was growing up, Nicholas's father taught him of the family's royal Scottish origins and of its involvement with royal witchcraft within the dragon tradition, which had been passed down to Nicholas's father by his own parents. Nicholas's father was gifted with the king's touch. His paternal grandmother, a Scottish Gael, was a skilled seer. Nicholas grew up and developed in isolation, detached from the vacuity of human culture, enveloped in a world of intellectualism, magic, mysticism, and imagination. At the age of 12, he was magically dedicated to the dragon tradition formally, and since then he has participated in many of the most ancient rites and rituals, and has been bestowed many various prestigious titles. His family's hereditary involvement in royal witchcraft and the dragon tradition is officially acknowledged, and he is recognized as a royal dragon prince by the House of Vere, as well as by the British government. He is considered the original magical prince, the rightful king of witches by familial inheritance, whose ancient royal blood lineage is unquestionable, tracing through well over 120 imperial and royal bloodlines going back over 5,000 years. As one of the few documented members of this bloodline in the world, he is uniquely qualified to understand some of the deepest human secrets and reveal them to us. His extensive work and ongoing research continues to reveal many deep secrets about our origins and true nature. He has authored books like The Dragon Seed and The Dragon Legacy. He has many websites available as well. Today he is the sovereign of the Dragon Court of the Royal House of Vere. On the Dragon Court website it says, "The Imperial and Royal Dragon Court and Order has existed since the very dawn of creation. It was founded by Earth's first rulers and teachers of the path to enlightenment, who are known variously as Enki and the Anunnaki, the sons of God, and as Sanat Kumara and the Kumaras, founders of the Great White Brotherhood. Historically, the Dragon Court was situated in Central Asia, Egypt, Sumeria, China, India, and Persia, where ancient dragon priest kings ruled over their beloved subjects, teaching them the dragon mysteries of alchemy and gnosis. The Imperial and Royal Dragon Court is currently under the administration of HRH Prince Nicholas de Vere von Drakenberg with the International Council of Princes. It is situated in Wales and the incorporeal and transnational sovereign duchy of Drakenberg. Our goal is to preserve and demystify the dragon mysteries, reunite those of the dragon blood, and to assist during this crucial shift in the ages with the planetary dissemination of the dragon path." The Imperial and Royal Dragon Court is a closed fraternity of individuals fronted by those who trace their ancestry and affiliations back to the ancient Grail and Dragon families. We Dragon are humanoid, morphologically similar but neurologically and psychologically different. Ultra-terrestrial simply means a capacity for living simultaneously in multiple dimensions of experience. Furthermore, the royal and ambassadorial nature of the title of the Prince of Drakenberg is recognized under the official observations of the Department of Internal Affairs of the government of its state of origin within the European Union. Documents pertaining to its sovereign status are held in government archives. The Chancellor of this Imperial and Royal Court of the Dragon Sovereignty, Sir Lawrence Gardner, is also an internationally known sovereign and chivalric genealogist. He has held many prominent positions and titles throughout his life, including Grand Prior of the Celtic Church of the Sacred Kindred of St. Columba, Presidential Attaché to the European Council of Princes, the Jacobite Historiographer Royal by appointment, as well as a Fellow of the Society of Antiquaries of Scotland. As such, he was granted privileged access to royal and religious archives and repositories across Europe. From these royal and suppressed archives, he obtained the information for his book, Bloodline of the Holy Grail, The Hidden Lineage of Jesus Revealed. In it, Gardner presents pedigree charts of Jesus and Mary Magdalene as the ancestors of all the European royal families of the Common Era. He shows in detail how the Merovingians, or Mary's Vine, merged with the French royalty and then married into all of the other European royal families. If there was ever a man who possessed the proper knowledge and skill necessary to tackle such a major undertaking as this, Sir Lawrence Gardner is that man. And in 2000, he and his dragon brother, Prince Nicholas de Vere, collaborated to put out his follow-up book, Genesis of the Grail Kings, the explosive story of genetic cloning in the ancient bloodline of Jesus. In it, they explain that not only can the Jesus bloodline truly be traced back to Adam and Eve, but that the first man and woman were primate alien hybrids created by the Anunnaki of ancient astronaut theory. More modern evidence showing the immense control and power that these ancient dragon bloodlines continue to wield today can be found in the existence of what is called the Trinity of Cities. You see, there are 3 cities or city-states across this planet that share striking similarities and play a crucial role in the global governmental system we have long been living under. These 3 specially carved out jurisdictions were set up to exploit covert legal tricks and tactics in order to perpetuate Dragon Bloodline's rule. They are sovereign corporate entities that pay no taxes, have their own laws, their own identities, and are not connected to the nations they appear to be part of. More than 80% of the world's wealth is contained within these 3 cities. These 3 cities are Vatican City, the City of London, not Greater London, and Washington, D.C. Most people already know that Vatican City is not part of Rome or Italy, but most do not know that the City of London, that is the square mile within Greater London, is not part of Greater London or England, or that Washington, D.C. is technically not part of the United States, which it controls. The Vatican is the last true remnant of the Roman Empire, and since the City of London and later Washington, D.C. were both founded from Rome and use Roman law, then it can be argued that America, the British Empire, and the Catholic Church are all modern components of a covert Roman Empire and the extension of those ancient dragon bloodlines, and each plays an important role in the controlling of the world's population. Vatican City controls about 1/3 of the world through false religion and by intentionally concealing and obscuring the truth concerning both God and mankind's truly divine nature. The City of London controls the world financially through currency and banking. And Washington, D.C. is the strong arm and controls the world through brute military enforcement and wars. Let's briefly discuss each and their apparent dragon connections. The seed is the Vatican. The word Vatican itself comes from Latin and is a contraction of 2 words. Vatis meaning prophetic or diviner, and can meaning serpent or snake. These 2 words combined make the prophetic or made divine serpent. And since the Vatican is a place, you may say that Vatican means the place of the prophetic and worship serpent. And an attempt to translate divining serpent into everyday English, it seems to mean a spiritual serpent that is worshipped as God. The importance of the symbol of the dragon to the Catholic Church is unmistakable, as they are found to be prominently displayed in various locations throughout the Vatican, including the museum where the crest of the Vatican, the serpent dragon, or the pagan Babylonian god Marduk, is the oldest and central piece of their collection. Images of dragons can be found in other places on the grounds too, like the large one on the Vatican floor, or those that are intricately carved into the wooden panels on Vatican doors. Today, the Catholic Church is the biggest financial power, wealth accumulator, and property owner in existence, possessing more material wealth than any bank, corporation, giant trust, or government anywhere on the globe. The Pope, who is the visible ruler of this colossal global wealth, is one of the richest men on earth, and even though the Pope is said to be the holiest living human and God's representative on earth, the majority have not behaved that way. Most have participated in various wicked and twisted forms of debauchery. Like Pope John XII, who it is said that there was no sexual act or perversion he would not try. He not only consorted with the whores of Rome, but also with young boys and animals. Pope Clement II surrounded himself with little page boys in tunics cut off above their buttocks, allowing the Pope to fondle them from behind from time to time. Others murdered their opponents and resorted to bribery and racketeering. 2 consecutive popes, however, take the title for having the most debauched reigns. Pope Innocent VII and Pope Alexander VI not only did their fair share of torturing and killing, but also frequented in bribery, simony, and nepotism, while making a virtual whorehouse out of the Vatican that resulted in several illegitimate children. Since its inception, the Catholic Church has spent hundreds of years waging crusades and inquisitions, mercilessly murdering and annihilating all opposition and forcing their indoctrination at the tip of a blade, essentially saying, accept our version of God or go meet yours immediately. They hunted down, slaughtered, and systematically eliminated all heretics, pagans, and anyone else they believed may possess any understanding of ancient wisdom and spiritual truth, intentionally driving humanity back into the Dark Ages in order to essentially reset history as if we've never been advanced before. They only passed their ancient advanced knowledge down through various dragon-controlled secret organizations and attempted to repress publicly any advancement in spiritual or scientific thinking, like Galileo's heretical assertion, which was well known before by many ancient cultures, that the earth revolves around the sun. To ensure the masses' ignorance of the truth, they have stolen, suppressed, and even intentionally destroyed esoteric information and artifacts that they have decided not to keep for themselves. The Vatican's secret archives are estimated to have over 52 miles of shelf space, housing everything from Jerusalem temple artifacts stolen in 70 AD by the Romans to Mayan codices that only they kept copies of and had the rest destroyed in bulk by the conquistadors and priests. More modernly, the Vatican is engaged in a whole lot of unsavory acts, including helping organized crime gangs launder vast sums of money and being one of the only places to still offer banking services that Swiss banks can no longer do by law. At the end of World War II, the Vatican even helped smuggle Nazi war criminals out of their countries as part of Odessa, a secret organization for former SS members whose purpose was to establish and facilitate secret escape routes, later known as rat lines, to allow SS members to avoid their capture and prosecution for war crimes. Under the leadership of Pope Pius XII, also known as Hitler's Pope, the Vatican negotiated a concordat with Adolf Hitler, who was born and raised a Roman Catholic and portrayed his Third Reich as a Roman Catholic enterprise as part of the loosely formed Holy Roman Empire. Pope Pius XII, who is accused of forbidding monasteries and convents to shelter Jews and accepting loot stolen from the Nazis' victims, wrote a letter to Hitler saying, "To the illustrious Herr Adolf Hitler, Führer and Chancellor of the German Reich, here at the beginning of our pontificate, we wish to assure you that we remain devoted to the spiritual welfare of the German people entrusted to your leadership. May the prosperity of the German people and their progress in every domain come, with God's help, to fruition." Many Jesuits became officers in the Nazi SS, and in fact the current Pope, Pope Benedict XVI, was himself a Hitler Youth. The second part of the Trinity is the City of London, often called the Square Mile. It's a plot of land approximately 1 square mile located in the middle of the London metropolis. The city is not a London borough, and it is independent from England. Unbeknownst to almost everybody outside the UK, and even to most British people, it has its own distinctive political representative body, and it is ruled by the City of London Corporation, which is probably the most powerful and self-interested political lobby in the world. The Dragon Bloodline's connection to this endeavor is made blatantly obvious by the City of London's coat of arms that displays a white shield showing the same dragon red cross of St. George and red sword that is found on the City of London's official flag, along with a pair of dragons, each holding opposite sides of the shield. This image is plastered next to the main street names on the signs in the square mile. You see, the dragon with the shield is the symbol of the City of London, and statues depicting him can be found in various locations marking and guarding the boundary of the City of London Corporation's jurisdiction, like the one on a pedestal before you cross London Bridge, and those on either side of the Victoria Embankment marking the border between the City of London and Westminster. The city-state of London is the banking arm of the Trinity of Cities. It is not only London's main financial district, but rather the world's financial power center, and it is the wealthiest square mile on the planet. It houses the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England, Lloyd's of London, the London Stock Exchange, all British banks, the branch offices of 384 foreign banks, 70 USA banks, Fleet Street's newspaper and publishing monopolies, headquarters for worldwide Freemasonry, and is the headquarters for the worldwide money cartel known as the Crown. It is thought to be the biggest tax haven in the world, as it hosts Britain's largest offshore financial center, and it is intimately linked to satellite tax havens across most time zones. Needless to say, this is the place where all the global power banking is done. The last city in the Trinity is Washington, D.C., which is located between Virginia and Maryland, but is not actually part of any U.S. state. Residents of the district have one non-voting representative in the U.S. Congress. They do not have voting representation in the United States Senate, but D.C. is entitled to 3 electoral votes for president. In the U.S. House of Representatives, the district is entitled to a delegate who is not allowed to vote on the floor of the House, but can vote on procedural matters and in House committees. Washington, D.C.'s government operates under authority derived from the U.S. federal government, and these dragon dynasties have managed to permeate American politics so thoroughly that the vast majority of successful politicians historically are from these prominent families and are commonly found to be high-ranking members in various influential secret societies and organizations. You see, the USA was founded by the Dragon Elite for the very reason of executing their plan to control the world. It is this nation which is the hub of its will of influence. Since its discovery, the history of the USA has been the history of ethnic cleansing, imposition of power, slavery, mass exploitation, and the worship of wealth. The U.S. president, generally accepted as the most powerful man in the world, is a slave to his prime allegiance, the Brotherhood and their bloodline agenda. Available evidence proves that running the United States has been a Dragon family affair since the very beginning. Did you know that all 44 U.S. presidents have carried European royal bloodlines into office? In fact, every U.S. president except the 8th, Martin Van Buren, are related to one common ancestor. They are all cousins and grandsons of King John Lackland Plantagenet of England, King John of Robin Hood fame, and the signer of the Magna Carta that gave more power to the British Parliament. 34 presidents have been genetic descendants from Charlemagne, the brutal 8th century king of the Franks, who was also George Washington's 31st great-grandfather. 33 descend from Alfred the Great of England, and 19 from King Edward III of England. In fact, until Barack Obama, the presidential candidate with the most British and French royal genes has won every single American election. However, President Obama is very much family too. His presidential cousins include Presidents George W. Bush and his father George H. W. Bush, Gerald Ford, Lyndon Johnson, Harry Truman, and James Madison. He is also linked genetically to other prominent figures such as Vice President Dick Cheney, British Prime Minister Sir Winston Churchill, and the Civil War General Robert E. Lee. If U.S. presidents are democratically elected, as we are told, then what are the odds that we would always choose members of the same royal families of Britain and Europe that we supposedly defeated during the so-called wars of independence to lead us? We, the people, are simply given the illusion of free choice, and regardless of which political party a candidate is affiliated with, the end result stays the same. Republicans push to make the rich richer and eventually squeeze out the middle class, and the Democrats push for bigger government involvement. Either way, the elite benefit and gain more and more power and control over the general population. Masonic researchers Christopher Knight and Alan Butler claim our first president and 33rd degree Freemason, George Washington himself, was a member of what they referred to as the Star family, and that he also helped with the occult symbolism that appears in the layout of the city that was named after him. He is shown depicted in a statue from 1840 by Horatio Greenough entitled The American Zeus, which is an illustration inspired by the colossal statue of the Nordic war god Zeus, and interestingly, the pose looks extremely similar to that of the devil in his occult tarot card. Also, interestingly, the White House is located at the same spot of the inverted pentagram, which represents the all-seeing third eye of the devil on his card. Through the Illuminati's thorough infiltration and manipulation of American politics and their control over Washington, D.C., America has been all too eager to play its part as the strong arm of the empire of the city. We average Americans have unwittingly participated in helping to progress the modern-day Roman Empire's agenda of total global conquest and domination through a long list of atrocities against humanity, including the waging of wars, often intentionally instigated through the use of false flag operations designed to deceive the public, by the operations appearing as if they are being carried out by other entities. These false flags are used for various reasons, including as justification for the forceful occupation of various global territories in order to safeguard the interests of U.S. megacorporations and the Bloodline's global operations. The earliest documented American atrocities committed by white European bloodlines on behalf of the U.S. government begin with stories of the slaughter of countless Native Americans en route to stealing all of their land and gaining compliance for this through the use of brute force, terror, and useless treaties that the white man had no intention of honoring in the first place. The list of sadistic crimes committed against humanity on behalf of the U.S. government just gets worse from there, as evidenced by the long list of admitted human experimentation, including not just surgical experiments, but the use of pathogens, disease, biological warfare agents and chemicals, radiation and radioactive materials, as well as psychological and other forms of torture on its own people, all without their knowledge or consent. Even today, we are still being constantly and continuously poisoned and intentionally kept sick through the use of things like organophosphate fertilizers and other toxic pesticides in farming, as well as by the addition of various hazardous chemicals to our food supply, like the neurotoxin preservative MSG or monosodium glutamate that attacks your nervous system, or the highly toxic and cancer-causing byproduct of the aluminum manufacturing process and the refining of phosphate rock, which was used as rat poison for 40 years, called fluoride, that is being added to the water supply around the world. They even add harmful chemicals like mercury to the vaccines that are meant to keep us well. Dragon families not only control the pharmaceutical drug racket, including the development, production, and distribution of drugs that cause worse problems and symptoms than those they are meant to treat, but they are also in control of the illicit drug trade that keeps millions of people easy to control and strung out. They work almost as hard to keep us sick as they do trying to keep us ignorant of and suppressing the findings of any scientific experiments or tests appearing to show any really effective treatments for various diseases like cancer. In fact, the last century there have been several medically proven, highly effective treatments and even cures for cancer. Most have been highly ridiculed and suppressed because there is no money in curing a disease, only through the need for treatment. Among these methods are things like the use of intravenous vitamin C, hemp oil, oxygen, ozone therapy, and even the control of the body's natural pH balance, all of which help support the body, whereas all of Western medicine's only available treatments of surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation therapy create more toxicity and problems for the immune system and are designed to indiscriminately kill your body's cells and immune system. It is easy to see that we all mean less than nothing to them. Even the war veterans who risk their lives for the elite's agenda get little to no help when they return home as thanks for their participation in the forcing of other countries and their populations into doing whatever the elite deemed necessary at the time. They come home with horrible physical and psychological damage due to what they have been forced to do and all of the different horrific things that they have seen and been made to endure. For this ultimate sacrifice these veterans have made for their country under the guise of fighting for freedom, most cannot get the medical help that they need physically or mentally. Many are starving and even homeless. After spending many years at the top as the world's strongest country, the United States are on their way back downhill because the global elite are intentionally running it into the ground. The time of our usefulness has almost passed, but before they leave us totally impoverished and irreparable, I assure you they will exploit every possible resource we have and leave us with less than nothing. We will soon be too poor to do anything besides what they say.